Hey y'all, this is Ramblin Chris. Today we're gonna change the fork oil and we're gonna upgrade the front springs. Our first step is to drain the fluid in the forks. To do so, we remove this screw, one on each side. Do it one at a time and you press down on the forks until all the fluid is out. So using a Phillips screwdriver, we're gonna remove the first screw. See, we got a little drip out of that. Set your screw aside, do not lose it. Now we're going to start pressing on the forks. Now when you're removing the fluid from the forks, I found the easiest method is stand the bike up straight, grab the front brake, that way the wheel won't move, and then just push down. When you get to the end, you're going to hear a hissing sound because you're just pushing out air. Up next, you're going to remove the fork cap. To do so, you either need the appropriate socket, you're going to need an appropriate size wrench, or a crescent wrench. I have a crescent wrench that will work for this. You're likely going to have to move the handlebars out of your way, depending on what your bars are. Give yourself a little more room. You're going to want to have the front end jacked up off the ground. That way you can get the tension off. Now this is not hard to do here at all. The torque level on it is really quite low. Just take your time doing this, and when you start to get towards the ends of the threads, you're going to need to make sure you're holding this cap. Otherwise, the spring tension has the potential to send it flying across the room, and even worse, potentially rip off the last couple threads. You can see these threads, they all still look fine. No damage to them at all. That was holding on and it still pops on you. You gotta really hold the pressure to keep these in. My next step is to remove the old spring. And then we're gonna come on over. Set it on down over here. You can see I already pulled out the other side. And this is the new spring. You will notice on here how the old springs are constant rate and the new ones are progressive. As I was looking for. You also likely notice they are shorter. To take care of that, this kit comes with these PVC spacers. You have to cut them to length. In my case, my springs are not worn, so they shouldn't be too bad. I should be able to go close so you can see I cut them just a little bit longer than the old ones, just to potentially take up any sag they had over the, let's see here, about 18 years this bike has been sitting on these springs. Our next step is to put the plug back in to our fork tube. Now you have two options. you can reuse the screw that came initially. Now with those, see if I can separate this. So with these, you can see there is a copper washer that comes with it. That is a copper crush washer. So you have a couple options what you can do here. You can either A, do what I did, buy a whole new screw. It was fairly inexpensive, so it's definitely nice for peace of mind. You can get new crush washers. And one more method I have heard, but I have not tried, is that you can heat these washers up with a torch, which will make them expand back out again. And then you can re-crush them again. As I've definitely heard of a lot of people using it with no issues. It's up to you which method you want to try. For the price though, I decided just go with the new screw. Now my new screw, it uses a Allen head instead of the old Phillips. So we're just going to go ahead and get that started on up in there. Up next, we're going to replace the fork oil. Now I decided to drop it to a 10 weight. That way it'd be a little bit more reactive, a little quicker. And I'm going to try that out, and I'm going to let you know how that goes for me. I've definitely seen in forums a lot of people trying that. Now what I did, in this cup, I poured out the fork oil into that. This one holds the old one, and I want to show you the difference between these. See, nice clean piece of paper. You can see there is the new. See, it's basically clear with a slight green tinge. Now we take the old, and just see that's just very dirty there. It's definitely time to replace this. Now let's talk about how we put the fluid in there. You have a couple options. You can get yourself some kind of measuring cup and just fill it up into the appropriate level, which is 9 ounces per fork or 266 milliliters. Now that's if you're just replacing the fluid. If you're doing a full fork build, brand new everything, then it would be 10.2 ounces or 302 milliliters. Now, if you use a measuring cup method, just make sure you take your time, measure accurately, and make sure everything drains out of that cup. Method I like to use a large syringe. Let you just suck it up and just force it in there and it all comes out. Now this is a 60 milliliter syringe. It also has a 2 ounce mark on there, but I'm going to use the milliliter side of it. So with that needing 266, that's going to be 4 of them all the way up to the 60 and plus a 26. So I pour it into the cup. Make sure you don't confuse your new from your old. I pour it in there. You just use it like you would a syringe. Just come on over, insert the syringe, and just push her on in. Just do it until you have the appropriate amount. Next, we're going to put in our spring. Now, even though these are different side to side, it doesn't matter how you put them in. I like to just be consistent though, so I'm putting the bottom on both sides. The tighter coils on the bottom on both sides of my forks. You can do it however you want. It really makes no difference at all. You want to make sure your front end is off the ground. You can see the spring was sticking out. Now it's fine. And from there, you just have to put in your spacer. And then this is where it gets to be a little bit more fun. This is the one hard part of the job. You have to get this pressed down while putting on the cap. This is likely going to be a team effort for you. All right, well, that's how you get your fork caps back on. I've definitely determined without a socket, you are not going to do it. You can make do with a normal socket, not recommended, but you can do it. In my case, a 35mm socket can do it. I guarantee most of you probably don't have one of those to start with, so I would go out and buy the actual socket made for these. Okay, all we have left to do is put the bars back on and we're ready to go.
Okay, so I finished the final step, which was to wash off any oil. Be sure to pump the forks up and down before you ride to make sure the oil has settled right. I'm going to see how I like this setup, and I'll make a follow-up video for this shortly. Be sure to like and subscribe, and until next time, this has been Ramblin' Chris.